I was asked to do a video or a slideshow on how I got my layout to where it is today. I started off at the beginning of lockdown and I've got a loft layout, and I thought I want to do a portable layout. So I sold all my expensive Lents DCC stuff and spent it all the profit I made out of it on DCC++ and a box of FlexiTrack, and started my new layout. I wanted something different, so I went for an industrial seam with a canal running through it with working barges. So this here is what you see is the underneath of the layout where the trains run round to pull the working barges through the layout. It's the best I could get out of a small area, very tight curves, but there we go. So I mounted the track, cut the centre bits out, and the track is mounted under there. This is the underside of the board. The track is mounted on here, and just above there is where the canal boats will be pulled around, and they will come out through into the layout and go different ways. A few brackets printed, and hold it on and run some wiring through. Every single piece of track had to have track feeds to it, doubly sure and doubly sure, because it's a bit of a pain to get to once it's done. So I flipped it over, and this is you can see the brackets there holding the canal track up, and this is the start of laying the track for the main layout. I decided box of FlexiTrack, and I was going to print everything else. So lots of these little turntables and the odd crossover there. Now you might notice they're all plastic, but all my locos will have a motor chassis and a decoder come stay alive chassis. So I have tested, and it runs over these no problem at all. Points were 3D printed as well. I thought, why not? I like a challenge. And these are early test pieces. This one here is just a Hornby 040 loco with quite a bit of weight on it. It's got a decoder and a stay alive on it. That's an early version, it's updated since then. On here it'll have this is a motor wagon now, and that'll be the decoder and stay alive there. So I need at least 2 trucks to go, make it go basically. And I was testing that obviously lead weight, because we need quite a bit of traction to get around these tight bends here. So this was track laying complete. Quite a lot of little turntables, all run off servos. Same again with the points. There's not so many points, but then again it is only a small layout. Now I decided there's 16 tracks in and out off the main board. I thought, right, let's have a sliding fiddle yard, and I designed one. It's got 32 storage tracks. So now each one of these tracks that goes out into the board can be supplied a minimum of 6 of these, because they're run and draw runners, so there's a limit. I think it's 6 or 7 of these, but in the middle you can get 14 different ones. Gives me a bit of operating option. Underneath I use the 3D printer principle. Got 2 snapper motors piggybacked, and I just pull this board along. It's running on 2 draw runners, and these are the detectors, infrared detectors on the tracks. I don't think I showed that. Each track is covered by an infrared detector, so if this decides to move and a train's passing over, well, in theory it shouldn't, because each track is covered. And that's just, I had to unsolder the infrared detector, run the wires through, and it's just a bus running that. And there's a bit of a close-up. I put them at 45-degree angles because I read somewhere that it picks up the locos better. It doesn't spot the gaps between carriages and give you false readings. That's the underside. A lot of SG90 servos. These are for turntables and turnouts, and there's turnouts as well. They're not connected there, but it's just a short bit of wire to connect them. Then it was wiring up the track, and every single piece, short and long, had a track feed to it. So built some braces, because once it was covered in plaster there was no going back. There's lots of these orange and white are encapsulated reed switches, so I'm running locos with magnets underneath, so I know where trains are roughly on the track. There's quite a few scattered around, and these little black dots are just plastic plugs, so when I've covered it in plaster I know exactly where I can drill through in theory and don't hit any wires. Then it was a case of covering it all in air dried clay. Now, no one told me that air dried clay really shrinks, and I thought, I might have cocked up here, and it's badly shrunk, and I thought, oh, but I cracked on really bad. And then at the end I thought, right, I rolled it all down, flooded it with PVA to stick it all down, and then rubbed filler in the cracks, and it actually come out better than I thought it would. So I couldn't have designed that, that was just pure luck. And that worked out quite well. And that's the layout, full layout. There we go, with a coat of grey primer. Everything I do gets a coat of grey primer before the main paint. Then it was a coat of black wash and bits and bobs, getting a bit of weathering detail on it. Then I put a couple of models on just to make sure that it looks alright. Next was on to the canal basin. This is the way I do my brickwork. This is just 1mm 3D printed brick on a backing. Bit of rough and ready, but it all comes good in the end. I paint it with a basic red paint. Then I do the leopard spotting technique, bit of orange, bit of ochre, bit of black, and go around. And at the end, a little bit of, I use plaster of Paris mixed with a bit of, what do you call it, the powder paint. So a bit of cream of that in there. Rub it all in, distress brick. Looks worse like that. Time you start adding a bit of detail. 3D printed ladders. That is balsa wood. 3D printed bolts, just to give it a little bit of something. And that is all for this video.